of the Kung Fu culture. Thanks for joining us, or joining me at least. Today, I don't have a special guest or anything. I kind of wanted to just talk about a topic that you see from time to time. But before we get started, let's let you know that you can always be a channel member on our YouTube channel. And that just really helps, support this channel. So maybe we can do it full time, just helping you to learn Kung Fu and Sanda, the Chinese wrestling, anything really, even the self-defense aspect. So a lot of fun things with regards to Kung Fu because it has like the internal and external aspects. So I always thought it was interesting. So, and it seems like a lot of you do too. So, feel free to support us, help us out. Yeah. Because I mean, every once in a while we will get comments where you would like to see, or some people ask me if I was going to be at some of the national wushu or like the Sanda tournaments and stuff. A lot of them happen to be in Texas now, so it's kind of far from California, but I'd love to go. So yeah, so think about it. Become a member, and we already have a bunch of really cool lessons. You can also request anything that you have a question about. I'd like to believe that the Kung Fu styles that I've learned, actually, I've been able to meet with some of the like more practical like instructors around the world, whether I was in Beijing at the sports university or the Beijing University of Physical Education, or even here in the Los Angeles area. I was lucky enough to find a really great traditional, like internal coach who also knows like a lot of the practical aspects that are lost in Tai Chi. Because that was the thing, actually. We did I think one of the earliest podcasts that we did, the proto podcast, because I don't think we were really trying to do podcasts regularly at that time. But actually, even the United Nations, they came out with a report saying that Tai Chi nowadays, like the majority of what is taught is not so authentic. So I felt like basically that I was able to find one of the few authentic coaches. So anyway, just throwing it out there. If you want to kind of support us, you can always become a channel member on our YouTube channel. Trying to keep it simple, like just keep it at one location. All right. Well, with that being said, I kind of wanted to make some audio clips of this, but it's not in English. So I kind of want to start here. So I'll just tell you about it. And you can totally find these interviews. There's another podcast. There's a sports podcast that was where they interviewed Norma Dumont from the UFC. So she is, well, and first of all, she is a native Portuguese speaker, and she went on a show. So if you don't know who she is currently fighting in the UFC professionally, has been doing very well, beating a lot of people in her division. But she is a Brazilian Sanda champion. And so she was interviewed like maybe a couple years ago on a sports podcast, and they asked her about her thoughts or what is Sanda, because it's not so well known. So she was basically, she said that Sanda is like all the stand-up aspects of MMA, right? So you have like the punching, the kicking, a lot of the wrestling stuff, like the clinches and all the takedowns, and so it is. So you get tons of practice doing all the main things of MMA. It's just once you get to the ground in Sanda, you have to stop the action and then you stand back up because it's ultimately still a kickboxing sport. So that's like like put in a nutshell, or put simply, that is why people who do Sanda are doing very well in MMA. You have UFC champions, right? So Zhang Wei Li, who is another women's champion. We also have in one championship a lot of people who are doing very well, especially like a lot of the fighters from the Philippines. They have us on the base. They just add like some of them add freestyle wrestling or maybe a little bit more jujitsu and stuff. So and then so basically they have all the striking and takedowns covered just with the Sanda, right? So then they can just like supplement a little bit of the mat wrestling, and so it is that effective, yet it isn't necessarily like the go-to thing in MMA. You're not really hearing as much about it. On YouTube, I am seeing more and more people kind of talk about it. Like we even had kickboxing champion Gabriel Varga on his channel. I think I always recommend anyone, if you're interested in kickboxing, you can go ahead and check out his channel. It's got a lot of great advice, but he even mentions that the Sanda fighters are really tough, and but his focus is kickboxing ultimately. So a little bit of different rules. So he doesn't really. I don't think there's another reason why he doesn't necessarily really talk about Sanda that much, because it is a kickboxing style, but it's not the same as what he does. So there's really no need for him to talk about it. But with that being said, like in MMA, a lot of people, with regards to striking, they're still talking about boxing and Muay Thai. Basically, those are the two main ones people will talk about with regards to striking. Both of them are fantastic, but neither of them really have wrestling in it. So Muay Thai will have some takedowns. They're basically, they only have takedowns that have like foot sweeps, so like they'll kick the leg out from under the other person. Minimal catching, like you might catch a kick. A lot of times they'll throw the leg down and then try to punch the person or kick the person. So whenever anyone tries to say like, "Oh, Muay Thai has takedowns," it's really not. They really don't. There's nothing as sophisticated as Sanda. Like Sanda really has actual kind of like even some like Greco-Roman takedowns or stuff that you would actually see in wrestling, which you just will not see in Muay Thai. So it is different, right? And we are seeing people who do very well in MMA. So let's kind of talk about like why, since there's so much evidence of people succeeding in MMA, professional MMA, uh, like why aren't more people like studying it, or why isn't it more readily available? So ultimately, I think it comes down to a couple things. So since we already have the evidence, we already know it works, we already know it's successful, and yeah, I think it comes down to kind of like the mindset, the thinking. So it is ultimately a logical fallacy. So it means basically people who think that it doesn't work, or they wouldn't want to learn it, or they think that something else is more effective, they're basically using a logical fallacy, right? So what that means is it's like they're appealing to tradition. So let's go ahead and give you an official readout here of the kind of like the definition here, where it's like an appeal to tradition fallacy basically argues that an idea, practice, or belief is correct or good solely because it has been around for a long time or is part of a long held tradition. So we're having like MMA has been around, was like over 20 years now or something. So it's almost like, even though it's not as old as say like an old kung fu style, or even catch wrestling or other martial arts, it's been around long enough. And then there are trends in MMA where you'll see maybe more techniques happening at some time, and then you see trends of other things and stuff. So it's been around long enough where it's kind of solidified itself to the point where, say, someone who only watches mainstream sports, they're thinking that that's the only thing that works, and those are the only techniques that you can do to be successful in a fight, or especially an MMA fight. But it's just like they don't realize that there are other things that are also just as successful. And even though they see like um, people will say, like, if they watch UFC, they see Norma Dumont winning, or especially in the women's divisions, right? There's so many Sanda fighters that are there winning their matches over and over. So despite the evidence, they're still like, "Meh, I don't know, just because like the prevailing idea is like, oh, you got to do boxing or Muay Thai, and a lot of times even boxing is. I think that boxing is probably recommended even more than Muay Thai because kicks and stuff, right? Um, but let's see what that like. What are the cons of thinking in that logical fallacy, right? I put a list together. Right. So, like, why is this way of thinking, or why is this fallacy problematic? All right. So, one, it assumes past correctness. It presumes that the old way of thinking was proven correct when it was introduced, which isn't necessarily true. Traditions can be based on incorrect information, outdated understanding, or even prejudice. So it's like we're seeing. It's like people who are seeing all these fighters in one championship and UFC winning, and then they're still saying like, "Oh, you got to learn Muay Thai, or you got to learn boxing. All the kick catching, all these other things don't work, or whatever." But they're yet they are working, right? Um, that's just it's just like the part of that fallacy where it's like their brains like not like are having just a prejudice against something that's just not a word or a martial arts style that they recognize, right? And then another thing would be like it ignores changing circumstances. The world is constantly evolving. What was appropriate or effective in the past may no longer be so today due to new knowledge, technological advances, or shifts in societal values. Right. So it's like people who've done, say, like boxing or Muay Thai, and even done so and like competed and done well in pro fights. It doesn't mean that like say like even back in the day there weren't as many Sanda fighters fighting, so the people who did well in the past weren't necessarily facing people who were doing the same style. So who knows how they would have reacted, right? So doesn't mean they would have all lost or whatever, but I mean it would have been interesting. So it's like you don't really want to close your mind to outside techniques or different styles just because they're not part of the mainstream, right? Another con to thinking that way is like it hinders progress. By relying on tradition alone, it discourages critical thinking, innovation, and the search for better solutions, right? So if you're always catching the kick and then throwing their leg down and trying to punch them or trying to kick them back, it's on the it's like if you catch a kick, a lot of times you're going to be throwing the person down. You can lift the person up, you can slam them, so you suplex, you do all these other things that would actually probably benefit you if you're doing them in MMA because they're all legal techniques. But you just won't see them in like say like Muay Thai. You don't see that stuff in Muay Thai. It just doesn't happen. But doing things like that is like highlight reel worthy in MMA. So that's why you might want to try to be a little more open minded. All right. So um, yeah, I think even just with the idea that I'm giving you about with like MMA and stuff, so I think it's probably good examples. I have a bunch of examples listed here, but it's like we're talking about sports, so let's just maybe keep it to sports, right? But I kind of wanted to uh, at the end of these lists I made. It's like the fallacy only occurs when tradition is used as the sole and unquestioned basis for an argument, disregarding any need for logical reasoning, evidence, or consideration or of changing circumstances. So it's important to note that tradition isn't always bad. Traditions can provide comfort, a sense of identity, and continuity. So it's like a lot of people they will want to hold on to the way they think or the way or their beliefs because it helps them to feel better, helps them to get a better understanding, or it helps them to feel that they have a better understanding of the world around them. So, like in the case of MMA, it's like you'll see people from a jiu-jitsu background, they feel like, oh, when the fight goes to the mat and someone is able to get a rear naked choke or an arm bar, then they feel like, oh, I know what that is, and that's familiar, and so then they feel like they understand a lot about what's going on. It's comfortable to them. So, but when like something foreign or a different style comes along, there you'll have like this cognitive dissonance, right? So it'll be a little difficult to kind of accept it at first, right? So even though people are winning, so that's the thing. So even though people are winning, using Sanda as their base, that's why you'll have like this idea where it's like people are actually, in the case of Sanda, are very slow to accept it. Right. So you have so many people doing well. Like I'm thinking about like in the Philippines. So it's like men and women doing very well in one championship. Also, all the Norma Dumont and a lot of the Chinese women doing well in UFC and stuff. So um, it's effective, but it is a little counter to the mainstream understanding of the sport of MMA. So just like Norma said, it's like if you're doing Sanda, you're getting a tremendous amount of time, like practice time with the main aspect of MMA, right? Because they really are emphasizing people who are good at stand up and striking and getting the takedowns. Those are like what judges really value in MMA judging and scoring. So, like she was saying, it's like you're putting in so much time doing like 75% of MMA, and you're not, if you're doing boxing, you're even doing less of that, right? Or if you're doing Muay Thai, you're doing even less of that. So um you know if you're against Sanda, then try to open up your mind. Just know that being against it is like is showing the illogical way that your brain is functioning, right? So hopefully it doesn't offend too many people, uh, but yeah, it's the whole idea of something different. So then you feel like it's different. So a lot of times people feel kind of threatened or whatever, but um, no, it's fun. It's great, and you can win in MMA as many people have shown. So that's all I have to say. Feel free to comment, or if you want us to talk about. Actually, I went through a bunch of the comments recently. So some people were asking. A lot of people liked when I had the guest, the yoga instructor Stephanie on, and you asked because she was talking about breathing techniques specifically. Uh, so some of you were interested in like exploring more of the idea of the breathing aspect of meditation and stuff. So we'll try to work on that. Uh, so yeah, we'll see when Stephanie can come back if she wants to go more in depth into that aspect, since you seem to be interested in that. And yeah, it's really one of the keys to like internal martial arts. So yeah, we might as well explore that even more. So thank you for your comments. So if there's anything else you'd like us to talk about, just let me know. Actually, one of my good friends spends a lot of time teaching and taking Tai Chi classes. So he has a lot of good insights into Tai Chi. So then I was thinking about maybe bringing him on and having him give his thoughts. So Tai Chi is really cool, and it's not like what a lot of people expect. It originally is uh, like a fighting style. So even though it nowadays is primarily thought of as a meditative style for old people, there's still a lot of great fighting techniques that you can learn from it. So, um, you know, thinking about talking about that a little more. But if there's anything in particular that you'd like to learn about or have us discuss, let's go ahead and do it. Just let us know. So comment down below. Um, and we'll be happy to talk about it. All right. So actually, there's a famous old quote that I think you should probably think about with regards to your kung fu training. It goes, enlighten the mind and make fierce the body. At least that's my translation of it. I know there's a different translation but I want to make it my own. So it's basically the same thing, just different words. And so hopefully that helps you to think about your training so to become stronger, not only in your body, but your mind as well. It'll help you in all aspects of your life, whether it's fighting sports or uh, the everyday, day to day struggles. All right. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.